Good evening. Thank you so much for finding time to join us for Monday's edition of Diamond Live. We come to your screens every Monday and Friday. We break down the day's biggest news stories. I'm your host. My name is Andrew Mwansa, but also we give you an opportunity to be a part of the program by calling us on the number that will soon be reflecting on your screen, but also you can take advantage of our Facebook page that is at Diamond TV Online to drop your comment and contribution regarding the topics that we're going to be having tonight on the table. Coming up on the program tonight, we'll continue discussing and breaking down the pastoral letter that did highlight quite a number of issues that the Catholic Church isn't pleased with when it comes to the governance system of this country. We're going to be speaking to Celistine Mukandila, who is a lawyer, as we get to analyze the pastoral letter. But like always, we'll start the show with Today in a Snap. Channel 271 on DSTV and Channel 20 on GoTV. We're going to be giving you an opportunity to be a part of the program later on. But let's quickly get to our snap for tonight. Now, the Lusaka Magistrate Court has fined National Democratic Congress President Saboi Imboela 25,000 kwacha for defaming State House Chief Communications Specialist Celistine Mukandila. Now, this is after the Lusaka Magistrate Sylvia Munyina found her guilty of 2 counts of libel. This is the matter in which Ms. Imboela is facing 2 counts of libel charges for defaming Mr. Mukandila. Ms. Imboela has been ordered to pay 25,000 kwacha by November 25th, 2024. Facts of the matter are that on September 9th, 2022, Ms. Imboela, while acting with unknown persons, defamed the State House Chief Communications Specialist. In delivering judgment, Magistrate Munyina said she found the statements made by Ms. Imboela on her Facebook page as defamatory and unlawful. She ruled that even though the Facebook posts only mentioned Mukandila without the first name, the perception that can be drawn by the public is State House Chief Communications Specialist Celistine Mukandila. Magistrate Munyina ruled that the statement posted have potential to ruin the reputation of Mr. Mukandila, considering the position he holds in society. And I think this comes as a timely warning to everybody who is in the system of defaming others. I was looking at the mitigations that the defense lawyer was putting up, also the arguments that were before court, and what in her judgment the magistrate did make mention of the fact that so long as dots are connecting to a particular individual, you don't have to mention the full name. If you defame anybody and you use some form of terminology to defame them without you mentioning their full names, if the dots connect to that specific individual, then you have defamed that named individual. So, well, it serves as a timely reminder to the people that are in the habit of defaming others. After the short messages, I'll be discussing the pastoral letter with lawyer Celistine Mukandila. Stick around. In response to the pastoral letter, this is what government has said. Now, the government has taken note of the pastoral letter issued by the ZCCB, wherein they have raised a number of concerns, assertions or allegations. The government, in noting the letter dated 15th November 2024 and paying attention to gravity of the matters raised in the pastoral letter, wishes to dedicate some time to study it in detail before giving a full measured response to the Catholic bishops. We urge our supporters out there that no one should take it upon themselves to begin to respond to what to what issues the Catholic have raised in the pastoral letter. That letter is addressed to government. We have already seen on social media various reactions. We are studying that matter, and at an opportune time, we will be able to respond to the Catholic by way of engaging them, and if need be, update the nation. This was what was said by Chief Government Spokesperson, who also couples as Minister responsible for Information and Media, Honorable Cornelius Bontwa, in response to the pastoral letter that was issued on the 15th of November 2024. In studio, I'm privileged to be joined in by lawyer Celistine Mukandila as we break down the pastoral letter. Counsel, good evening. Thank you so much for making time to speak to the nation tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to you.
Before we can tabulate the specific issues in the pastoral letter, I deliberately read out what the stance of government is on the pastoral letter. They're stating that they're still studying the pastoral letter, and they've urged the UPND members not to comment because the letter was addressed to government and not UPND supporters. Don't you think government is has put on some form of maturity, they've put on some form of diplomatic maturity in addressing the real issues that the Catholic bishops are raising?
Well, of course, for the first time, we've seen them coming out in a very mature manner. However, as usual, we've got a government and a UPND party that is very overzealous. By tomorrow, I can assure you, we'll see statements flying around and demonizing the pastoral letter that has been issued by the Catholic Church and the Catholic bishops, as the case may be. So, well, it's good that the minister has indicated that, to indicate that they're still studying the letter. Albeit I still feel, well, the UPND and perhaps very soon we'll see the overzealousness. It's always there. Yeah.
But let's quickly get to the issues in the letter. One of the critical issues that the letter, mentions is the frequent arrest of opposition political party leaders, civil society organizations, journalists, and as well as ordinary citizens. The bishops mentioned that there have been about 6 opposition political party presidents that have been arrested so far.
Well,
the argument by those that are sympathizers of the UPND Council has been that all these presidents, opposition political party presidents who've been arrested, they've been arrested because they've committed crimes, and that's the reason for why they've been arrested.
You see, we've had a major concern in this country where the application of the law is concerned. The biggest concern has been that there's not been equitable application of the law. We understand that offenses that are committed ought to be, to some extent, thwarted, So where an offense is committed, it's extremely important that remedial measures are taken to ensure that such a person who may be found wanting is brought before court and prosecuted. Now, the biggest challenge we've had in this government, in this regime, has been the fact that, well, a person may be suspected of having committed an offense, but there's been a lot of human rights abrogation in as far as detentions are concerned. So this person would be charged with an offense or will be arrested or detained for excessive number of hours without being taken before court. So those have been our concerns, that this government has been abusing the provisions of the law, they've been abusing human rights, and there's been a lot of human rights violations. So there is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with ensuring that law and order is maintained. However, our major concern has been the abuse by the police, in as much as human rights are concerned, where they decide to detain individuals for exaggerated number of hours. That in itself is totally unacceptable. Now, we have seen a growing trend, which growing trend has been noticed by civil society organizations, the Law Association of Zambia, the church. This growing trend has been with regards to curbing the freedoms and that have been guaranteed in our Constitution. So you'll be able to notice that these individuals that have been arrested have been those that have been critical voices opposing to a government's agenda and just giving critiques as to this government. So these individuals have been arrested, and you've seen that these arrests have been they've been politicized, they've been too political. But otherwise, you've seen also that in the ruling elite, in the ruling elite, you've seen that people have been committing offenses in broad daylight, but because they are connected or have got an affiliation to the UPND, they are not being arrested.
Actually,
so there is no equitable application of the law.
The letter takes, cognizant of what you've said. They say, the Catholic bishops say, it is not possible that only opponents of the party in power are criminally minded. So we're left to wonder if the frequent arrests and detentions of opposition leaders and officials is deliberate strategy aimed at instilling fear and intimidation in them, keeping them busy in court with costly and time-consuming litigation that undermine their political work and potentially securing convictions that could exclude them from participating in future electoral contests. Perhaps maybe also the argument, Council, could be that those within the UPND are not criminals.
No, you see, that is why we've indicated that the kind of regime we're living by is one that does not see a wrong that is committed by the UPND. We've got a plethora of examples where the UPND members have committed offenses, such as where you saw individuals insulting the former Republican president, Dr. Edgar Lungu, and nothing has ever been done with regards to that. Those are offenses that have been committed in broad daylight. We've seen individuals affiliated to the UPND abrogating the law and even not following court judgments or court orders, and nothing has been done with regards to that. So there is a growing concern that our democracy is at the brink of collapse because of what is happening. There is a growing concern that this government is trying to curb competition, the competition that is supposed to be there in a democratic society like ours. Zambia is a democracy. Zambia is a constitutional democracy. Now, we, the people of Zambia, have given ourselves a constitution. This constitution has provided that there should be equal participation in the political affairs of this country. What we are seeing is where the UPND has decided to curb a voice of reason, any voice that provides credible checks and balances to them, any critical voice. Unfortunately, this is where we are now. So there is no possibility that we can live in a society where the only people that commit offenses are those belonging to the opposition. But where an offense is committed in broad daylight, committed by a UPND member, nothing is done. So we've seen that kind of selective justice. And that should never be allowed in a democratic dispensation like ours. Can we please live by the creed of Lady Justice, where the law is blind, where an offense committed by any person in this country should be seen to be prosecuted in real term? We should be able to see that we respect each and every individual's human rights. Remember, these human rights are given to ourselves by the Constitution, by the Zambian people. And these are inalienable. You cannot separate them from individuals.
Maybe also the other school of thought in terms of arguing this case, Council, could be that those within the UPND are very quick in reporting some of these cases to police. Once a Patriotic Front member breaks the law, they'll quickly go to the police and report it. But we've seen less of the opposition breaking, opposition getting to take some of these, cases to police to report once they,
You see, my brother, we've had a couple of matters, a lot of matters that have been brought before the police, before investigative wings, and nothing has been done. Imagine there was an issue of some corrupt allegations that were made by Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba. He reported to the Anti-Corruption Commission. Up to now, we're still waiting for action to be taken. We had a leader of PEP, Mr. Sean Tembo, wanting to report a matter, which matter the police refused to hear his complaint, to the extent that he even took the matter to court. Before court, requested for private prosecution. The DPP, the office of the DPP, refused to grant the fiat or the consent. Now, this is where we are now, where institutions of government have now been politicized. Institutions of government have now been turned into branches of the UPND, which should never be the case. Now, you see, I have a concern with what I've been...
In this regard, you're stating that the office of the DPP...
The office of the DPP in its current state is compromised. It is extremely compromised that you should not be surprised if tomorrow or the other day an individual takes the DPP to the JCC requesting that this DPP be stripped of his position as DPP. Because we've got precedents where we have seen that this government, through their agents, have taken the previous DPP to the JCC for her removal. We saw precedents created in the Lillian Suyuni case. Now, they indicated that the DPP was not operating in public interest. What we are seeing is not public interest being advanced by the office of DPP. Instead, we are seeing the interest of a political party being advanced. Now, this in itself, the Constitution is extremely clear, and that is why I always repeat to say we need individuals with integrity in these offices. If you feel there's political influence to the tune of compromising the integrity of your institution or your office as DPP or Attorney General, there is nothing wrong with you indicating to say, I have refused to take this instruction. Besides, this is an office which is supposed to be sacrosanct. The office of DPP is one where you cannot take any direction from anybody. Constitutionally, the Constitution is very clear. But where you are going to decide to operate in a manner that clearly shows that as a DPP you may be compromised, you may be listening to political players or the power that be, then therein lies a problem. Therein lies a point of questioning your integrity as DPP. So my point is we have compromised in this government, and this regime has compromised institutions of government.
It was the same argument, Council, under the MMD. It was the same argument under the Patriotic Front, and it still remains the same argument under this current administration of the UPND. Where do you think really the problem lies? Because even under the Patriotic Front, the office of the DPP was said to be compromised. Madam Siyuni was called all sorts of names by the UPND in opposition.
In this regime, it has become so apparent. It has become so apparent that even clear cases where you have seen that an offense has been committed, this DPP has refused to grant the fiat for private prosecution. So it becomes a point of worry. Now, I will tell you that if a wrong was committed in the MMD, if a wrong was committed in the PF, and it was seen as a wrong, it should never be seen as a right in the UPND. Because the Zambian people made a decision in 2021 to get rid of the PF government on the premise that there shall be equitable distribution of resources, there shall be respect for the rule of law, there shall be respect for good governance models. But what we are seeing is an exact 360-degree turnaround where institutions of government have been compromised. Today, the civil service is now almost becoming a branch of the UPND because they've compromised the integrity of the civil servants. Civil servants today are not able to perform their duties properly because they are intimidated by political cadres from the UPND. They are seriously intimidated by the executive arm of the government to the tune that this government, we have seen, for example, the Anti-Corruption Commission Board had some resignations where individuals on that board indicated that there's been a lot of interference from State House, a lot of interference on the deliverables of the Anti-Corruption Commission. So making that institution not as independent as it ought to be. We have recently seen the ZCCB board where a resignation has come from one doctor, where the doctor indicated that this board or this institution is not respecting good governance models, you know, as provided for by the King 4 code on corporate governance. So they are not following corporate governance
but Council,
ideologies.
Anybody can allege. Anybody could assert all those allegations.
You cannot, you see, facts are speaking for themselves. Lawyers will tell you that res ipsa loquita. Facts are speaking for themselves. Where you have seen
but
that
facts must also be backed by evidence.
Now here's the thing. You cannot have 2 or 3 boards having individuals resigning and alleging that that people are not following corporate governance models or codes. That is in itself showing you that this government has decided to compromise the integrity of the civil service.
Let's look at it.
Now, you will find that, you see, these parastatals, for example, run on the basis of corporate governance. Now, if you do not follow corporate governance principles, therein lies a problem with regards to accountability, with regards to transparency, and just the way you run a parastatal. Now, therein lies a problem when you fail to follow these corporate governance rules. They are basic rules that have to be followed in order to run an organization in a proper manner. What we have seen is now procurements that are not being done according to provisions of the law. Remember, these corporate governance policies will come in line with provisions of the law vis-a-vis provisions of good governance policies within the organization.
I would like for us to move to the second issue that the Catholic bishops raised in the pastoral letter. They say, we reiterate our commendations of government's efforts to recruit thousands of teachers and health workers and those in the security services such as the military and the police. These efforts will go a long way in alleviating poverty among our people. We also commend government for reaching a restructuring deal with the official creditors, who include multilateral institutions like the International Monetary Fund, bilateral donors such as the United States and the European Union countries, bilateral agencies from China and other emerging markets, and private bond holders. Do you agree with the position of the Catholic bishops that they have commended government for these economic strides that government has made, employing thousands of civil servants, reaching a debt restructuring deal, and obviously they say that this will help in alleviating poverty? Should we be commending government for this?
Well, there's nothing wrong with government employing people. That is actually a duty of government to ensure that with development comes vacancies, employment vacancies, and those vacancies have to be filled. There's nothing wrong with the Catholics being as objective as they have been, where they are informing government to say, we appreciate your efforts in the process of poverty alleviation, and then there's nothing wrong with that. So I feel on the part of employment, it's something that has to be done. It's a good move. We all appreciate it. Poverty alleviation remains the core.
Government says this is unprecedented in 3 years, where thousands and thousands of jobs have been created, and they say that you can go to your records. You check. Well, there hasn't been such unprecedented levels where jobs have been created.
Well, the reality is that in as much as this is unprecedented, you must equally look at the unprecedented developments in terms of infrastructure that have caused these vacancies. Remember, you cannot employ a nurse to go and work where there's already an occupied space. So therein was construction of 650 health posts that were done, and upgrading of clinics into mini hospitals or level 1 hospitals. That in itself created the vacancies, which vacancies required that people have to be employed. We had a constitution in 2016 which provided for devolution. Now, the process of devolution required that you now start creating provincial centers, district centers in different districts to ensure that construction of these district administration offices are done, district houses for the police, DEC, immigration, RATSA, and different parastatal bodies are done, all in the verge of ensuring that we live up to the standards of this constitution, which is the 2016 Act number 2. Now, that act provided for those things. The government in place then, we being the PF government, decided to embark on that massive infrastructure development, which was in fact a must for them to do because it was a constitutional attainment. You needed now to give life to this constitution. We give ourselves the constitution in 2016. We need to now give it life. How? By ensuring that we build these things. Now, phase 3 of the devolution process required that where now you have a hospital, where you have a school, where you have housing units for the police, housing units for the Zambia Army, housing units for ZNS, what is the next thing to do? Phase 3 would require that you now provide these infrastructures with human resource, the relevant human resource. Now, it is not rocket science that we have seen this unprecedented employment fever. It is because infrastructure has been provided to allow or to permit this kind of employment to be done. So it's not rocket science. However, it is extremely important that we continue to have this being done because we need to give a lot of life to the constitution that we gave ourselves in 2016.
Granted, Council, the same way that you've reminded the people of Zambia of unprecedented development that was done under the previous administration, and also the need for the people really to see and commend the previous government for the unprecedented infrastructure. I think also,
and by the way,
in the spirit of fairness, I think government must be commended for the job well done in the employing of these workers.
Yeah, and by the way, the wheels of governance does not stop moving. The wheel of governance does not stop moving. Governance of a country is a continuous process. And that is why, if you've observed that there is actually a presumption that government will never be put to a standstill. So the process of governing a country requires that you've got a civil service that is operational, a civil service that will have perpetual succession. Now, just a minute. And that is why I've got a major concern with the way this president and this UPND is running government, to the extent of deciding to institutionalize cadreism, which is a danger that has brought a lot of division.
How have they done that? How have they done that?
A danger that has brought a lot of division in the civil service, wherein you have civil servants, for example, people on government payroll, singing a political song. You saw ZNS officers singing a political song for the UPND. Now, that should never be allowed. The Civil Service Code is very clear as to...
We saw that under the previous administration.
I will tell you...
One Pastor Chomba, when he was singing praises, at the time he was a top civil servant, a permanent secretary.
And you see, that is what I'm trying to say. A wrong that was done in the previous regime or in any other regime should never be considered as a right today. My brother, if something is wrong, it is wrong. We are not going to deviate from the fact that it is wrong. When you are a civil servant, the Constitution gives you the right to affiliate yourself or to believe or to belong, to associate yourself to a political party. However, it does not give you the right as a civil servant to show support for the political party in government. What it does is to show support or support for the government of the day. So as a civil servant, you need to support the government of the day, but not the political party of the day.
What's the difference?
The difference is, if you're going to support the political party of the day, you deviate from the fact that it's just a political party. Remember, a political party has got different ideologies. But a government of the day is one that sustains development for the nation and respects the creed of the civil service code. Now, you are a civil servant. You cannot go out there and start chanting symbols as a political card.
Don't you think it will take a while for people to just begin to act professionally? Because it's not long ago when we had the PF in office and the civil servants under the Patriotic Front behaved in a similar pattern. And don't you think, Council, it's too early for you to begin to...
That is where we are missing it. That is where we are missing it. I've indicated. I will tell you that I've been a civil servant before. And mine has always been that if you're a civil servant, and that is what the Civil Service Code indicates, if you're a civil servant, you are not political in any way whatsoever. Yours is to respect and defend the government of the day. It is a government of the day. Now, that is why I keep on indicating to say, let us respect the creed of the civil service. If this government can decide to respect the civil servant, that would be the best thing would do. And that is why I've kept on indicating. I even wrote on some pages to say, President Hakainde should hands off our civil service. He should hands off our judiciary. And the reason is because we need a conscious civil service come 2026 as he leaves office. So it is something which is extremely important. The integrity of the civil service has to be respected. We cannot reach an extent where we decide to politicize the civil service. It's a continuous wheel, for crying out loud. That is why I've got an uncle who worked in the UNIP government. He worked in the MMD government for Chiluba. He worked in the government for
just on the economic situation that the Catholic bishops wrote on. They went on to write around the high cost of living. So they say the agricultural sector has been badly affected by the 2023-2024 drought and poor distribution of farming inputs, while the price of meal has escalated beyond the reach of most Zambians. In addition, the monthly changes in fuel prices have severely destabilized key components of the energy sector, including supply reliability, price instability, and overall market efficiency. The exchange rate, which was expected to stabilize on the day the new government was sworn in, as we were promised, has instead remained volatile, negatively impacting key areas of the economy, such as import costs, inflation rates, and business operations. The argument from government has been that, for example, the Catholic bishops here mentioned the high price, that people are buying meal at. Now meal is costing around 380, 340 to 380. Government says if we were not hit by the drought, things would have been better. If we're not hit by the drought, the economic situation would have been better. Also around the issue of fuel, government says that, look, now the fuel that you're buying, Council, is cost-reflective fuel, and the fact that this fuel is gotten from outside Zambia, it's being determined by two factors. Number one, the amount at which it's bought at the international market, but also the exchange rate. We're not in control of what happens, on the international market. But before you answer this question, I've got someone on the line. Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello?
Hello, good evening. Matthews Shamanga.
Yes, please.
Go ahead with your contribution tonight.
Yes. I can see the gentleman that is on the panel there, who is saying that the government of the day is not doing the right thing. Unfortunately, my assessment is that this government is doing the best, and I think it's the most hard-working government that I've ever come across in this country. In my many, many years of being here as a Zambian. Because you have seen that this country had gone down to nothing completely. Yesterday and today, the president was commissioning 2 mines. He has done that at Mopani, he has done that at Nchanga mine here in Chingola. There are so many activities that this UPND government is doing, trying to revive the economy of this country. Okay? And when someone says the cost of living is very high, for me, this government is trying a great deal to reduce that cost of living. If you look at what the government is doing to subsidize many areas of our life in this country, the government has given the students their meal allowance, which was reduced. That's a subsidy. The government is giving us cash for work. That's a subsidy. That money is coming from the government. When you look at cash transfer, that's a subsidy. You know, all this money is being created by the government.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Matthews Shamanga. We greatly appreciate for your comment there. Council, your reaction to Mr. Shamanga calling us from Chingola as you also respond to my question around the high cost of living.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Shamanga. We respect your opinion, and I feel personally I respect your opinion. However, I think it's important that we remain very objective as we discuss national issues. We are discussing things that are affecting the Zambian people. Today, the cost of living has skyrocketed to over 100%. Now, this is something that I am feeling. This is an impact which is on my life. The salaries for each and every individual in the country have remained the same, but the cost of living has skyrocketed to over 200%.
Salaries have increased by 500 kwacha.
Now, well, we'll look at that rhetoric later on. Now, look at the fact that this government came to power on the premise that they promised the Zambian people certain deliverables. Now, these deliverables include that the fuel price would reduce from the 16.75 that it was to about 12 kwacha, because there was an allegation that the previous government had middlemen who were stealing money from the Zambian people. But where we are today, they are now claiming that we are buying cost-reflective fuel. Now, the truth of the matter is, back then, they alleged that cost-reflective fuel will be one that is going to provide a reduced amount. It simply shows that today we've got the most irresponsible government that did not understand what it meant to run this country. They did not understand the economic aspect of it. They did not understand the energy aspect of it. These individuals decided when they came into power, with all due respect, they sold all our maize reserve, all our 3 million tons plus that was found in the reserves. They decided to sell. It was foreseen, by the way, when you read the 2020 Economic Recovery Plan, it was foreseen that we would have drought. It was foreseen. And the reason why they found 3 million tons of maize reserves is because of that foreseeable calamity that was seen. Now, what do? They find the maize, they sell everything. We had nothing to the extent of us re-importing whatever it is that we had exported.
But
Now, the process of movement...
They didn't pocket this money when they sold the maize. It's not like
it does not matter. You need to have foreseeability. Food security is an extremely important aspect of the governance of the country. Remember, you cannot decide to sell whatever is in your house just because you want to keep money and not have
the previous
food.
government
How do you have millions of kwacha and yet you don't have food to feed?
The argument by government is that the previous administration hadn't paid these farmers, and so they sold the maize for these farmers to be paid.
My brother,
because the farmers were demanding for their money.
The reality is this government decided not to follow the fact that government is a continuous will. There was an economic recovery plan in 2020 that was crafted by the civil servants then in the PF government. Now, that economic recovery plan provided for things that ought to have placed this country's economy at an area where it was going to be extremely stable and we were going to start growing on an average of 3 to 3.5% upwards, despite the fact that we were undergoing a COVID situation, despite all the fact that we had this projected foreseeable drought that was coming. We will still have enough grain as of today. The milling meal prices would have been maintained to the figure that it was because we would have had enough grain. But this government decided to irresponsibly sell all the maize reserve. Now, these are realities that are there. Irresponsibility on the part of the leadership of this government. Do you know why that was the case? Because of bad leadership. Bad leadership to the tune that they decided not to follow a good document such as the Economic Recovery Plan of 2020, which plan, by the way, provided that as Zambia, we shall be buying gold to increase our gold reserves so that our debt should no longer be sustained by the US dollar, as the case has always been, but by the gold reserves that we had. We started buying gold as government through ZCCMIH, through the Bank of Zambia. The process continued up until 2021 after the elections. This government decided to stop all that because they thought whatever it is that was being done by PF was useless. They had the plan and they had the solution. They came in and everything went haywire. Today we are suffering because of bad decisions by this government. This regime, bad decisions and bad leadership. And I will tell you that if we had gone on to purchase that gold, by now we would have declared, by the way, unlike the political rhetoric of President Hakainde, which stated that by 14 hours when he's put into office, by 14 hours the dollar will have appreciated. Unlike that rhetoric, the truth of the matter is, if we had continued to buy or purchase the gold, the only thing we would have done is to indicate or announce to the nation that we now have this much quantity of gold in our reserves. Let's go to the currency will have appreciated. That is the true economic effect.
Let's go to the copy board. Back to the copy board. Nosol Muisa from Undola calling us. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, yes, sir. So I just wanted to add on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
That, yes. Current to this situation, we need even just to appreciate God even to have this government. When we talk about the maize that we had, why they sold, it was because of the pressure from the farmers. Farmers, they didn't get paid. Farmers. That's why quite pressure area the number of farmers. If you look at the current situation now, we need even just to appreciate. Why kubungo bunga tawele? Because tabatile subsidize. Impia shirevo mbera kokumbi. They are testing the economy. That's why if we have this economy right now, we need even just to appreciate God. But if it was the previous government, I don't think so. So we need just to appreciate God, especially where it is due. We need to appreciate this government and we need to appreciate God. The drought, Tapadi Munturi on so Shaishiva. Umuntu wonse alishiba. Ikyakikika kyonse. That's why the president is encouraging everyone. Let's try. Once nga bonse twalima like alipo muri Mwansa. Bonse kwali kuingira mu kola bonse twalima. Once bonse abantu bakwata amataba. You find that the price of milk will be stabilized. Kuna problem. So let's just encourage everyone.
Tuatotera ba Muisa. Nelson Musa calling us from Undola. Well, seemingly that Mr. Musa is happy and that we should encourage the president for the good job.
You see, we need not embellish the situation. We cannot start. You see, if you've got an opinion, like I indicated, those opinions are respected. But I'm living in a Zambia where I'm buying millimil at 380 plus. I'm living in a Zambia where I'm buying fuel at 34 kwacha plus.
At least, in fact,
I'm living in a Zambia where a president told me before I elected him into office that he shall reduce the cost of millimil to 50 kwacha. There is a legitimate expectation on the part of the Zambian people. And that is why, you know,
the Zambian people seem
in
to
as much as we are supporting these issues to say we should thank God. Personally, I don't think I can thank God for giving us a president that has decided to just put us in tatters, where the cost of living has skyrocketed from where it was to over 100%. I don't think it is right for us to start mocking God. You know, these are things that do not even require rocket science. It is not something, you see, and I get worried, I get perplexed to see that a person would comment to indicate that we should thank God that the dollar has reached 28 today. How do we thank God that the dollar has reached... And today we have seen a leadership, for example, that has decided to sell our minds without following procedures of the law.
We'll be coming to that. Johnson Mwenye calling us from Chingola. Thank you so much, Mwenye, for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to you.
Thank you so much. This is Johnson Mwenye calling you from Chingola. I just wanted also to make a contribution on the debate which is going on there. Yeah, one thing that we should appreciate is what my brother there is trying to tell the nation is, you know, we need to appreciate what the government is doing. And so far, so good. I can only say that we are coming from a regime which has borrowed over $40 billion. And this president is now trying to do everything possible to rebuild the nation. And he should even be grateful that we have President Hakainde Hichilema, that God has given us at such a time like this. It would have been worse. And, you know, when you are trying to not to be objective, because any opposition, political party, or anyone who is coming with the highs of an opposition, they shall never be objective. They will always try to talk you of the government, which is with the ruling government. They will try to see as if they are angels, because in everything that we are doing, my brother, we need to do according to what God is saying. Because and there are certain things that are coming as an act of God. And this government is doing everything possible. And what's the purpose of keeping the maize? And the government is just there to see to it that they keep the reserves, where farmers, the one who are told to make sure that the maize reserve were there, they were not paid. So I don't know what he's trying to tell the nation. He has to be objective. He shouldn't just politic as usual. And this President Hakainde Hichilema is here for a while. And whatever that is trying to tell the people of Zambia, we are not going to buy into that cheap politics.
Thank you so much, Johnson Mwenye, for coming through. For the interest of time and progress, allow me to pick on another issue that the Catholic bishops highlighted and this was under the heading of the fight against corruption. So they say reports of improved performance of Zambia on the Corruption Perception Index are encouraging and commendable. Further, we commend the government for its efforts towards fighting alleged corruption of officials under the previous administration of the Patriotic Front. However, we urge the government to show similar commitment to fighting the current corruption. It moves on to say, successive reports from the Financial Intelligence Unit and other official bodies show that corruption in government is on the increase, but senior government officials seem to be shielded from prosecution. Your take on this, Council?
Well, it is clear. I've always had an opinion that as long as the Anti-Corruption Commission remains under State House, the fight against corruption remains a fallacy. In this government, the fight against corruption remains a fallacy because this president promised the Zambian people that he shall fight previous corruption, current corruption, and future corruption. What we are seeing is he is fighting or he is persecuting previous regime and not fighting current corruption.
Are you calling
which current corruption we have seen? We have seen this current corruption happening. The Financial Intelligence Report has given us hints, and this report has been distributed to institutions of government that deals with law enforcement. Nothing is being done. Why? Because we've seen the Anti-Corruption Commission, which operates at the desk of State House. We've seen a report by Dr. Kaba indicating that there's been a lot of interference with the operations of the Anti-Corruption Commission. And I don't believe the fight against corruption under this regime is as genuine as it ought to be. This president will say one thing in the morning, in the evening, a different thing is said.
Just what you thought. We have a caller from PS Tabokana. Hello, good evening, PS Tabokana. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and good evening to your guest there, my brother. How are you today?
Very well, PS. How are you, sir?
I am well, thank you. Well, I think I've just called in basically to greet you. You're my brother, just to say hello to you. But essentially to just thank the people of Zambia. Because I am following the program and I'm seeing that you are getting callers from Chingola, from Ndola and other places. And the callers are appreciating what this government is doing, what their president is doing. I think it has now sunk in that the people of Zambia are in tandem with the vision and the work culture of their leader and their government. So it gives me great sigh of relief as people in charge of information to make the people understand what their government is doing and where it is taking them. So it is very nice to hear the people themselves begin to argue and say, what you're saying is not correct. It is like this, it is like that. I don't need to repeat myself or repeat what they have stated. So I've just called in to say thank you to the people of Zambia and also to greet you, my brother, and just to say, please, we are enjoying the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you go, PS, should we also thank your government for institutionalizing cadreism? Or perhaps rewarding individuals for storming radio stations in a manner that you did, sir?
Okay. We should thank the government that they have got patriotic. I'll wait for you to finish, then I can answer. Just tell me if you're done.
Yeah, so in the spirit of the civil service, you are the head of the Ministry of Information, sir. It's extremely important that we remember that in as much as you are a political appointment, you are a civil servant, and it's extremely important you remind colleagues within your ministries and everywhere else that the civil service has got a code of conduct, which code of conduct should be respected because government operates on the basis of continuity. Thank you very much, PS.
Thank you. So let me just respond. I think, yes, we should thank God that we have a president that has appointed patriotic Zambians to be part of the civil service, such as myself, one that cannot tolerate that a person will go on the airwaves to tell lies. So what I will do is I will call the radio station or the TV station and politely ask if I can join so that I'm able to give the correct version. And I'm invited. One of the stations that I came on is actually Diamond TV, and Mwansa is there. He's one I even called, and he says, come and join Nakachinda here. So the word storming, therefore, does not arise, and I want to really believe you're an educated person. Secondly, even you, my brother, I know that you and me were both cadres in PF, and you got a job in Iratsa. Yeah, but so that is neither here nor there. What is important to state is that when we are given jobs in civil service, we must stay away from active politics. Now, what is active politics? And let me make this very clear. If there are elections in UPND or PF or Adedozamkano or MDC or MMD, and as PS, I go and participate in those elections, I am being political. If there is a by-election and I go there and I speak at the rally to urge people to vote for that candidate, I am being political. But if I speak on the importance of what my government is doing, the importance of what my president is doing, despite the political attacks that are coming from brothers like yourself, that's not being political. So we need to thank God that there is a wise president that has appointed patriotic Zambians such as myself to save the people of Zambia, and we're doing our best to save the people.
All right, thank you so much, PS Tabokana, for joining us on Diamond Live tonight. But just before PS came through, we were looking at the fight against corruption, and your argument was that the current corruption is not being fought, and that's what the Catholic bishops are equally arguing. But you are calling the prosecution of the previous administration as persecution.
The use of lawfare by this government to try and curtail a voice of reason, a voice that has decided to criticize them positively, is what I'm against. I am against the intimidation of the judiciary, to the tune that the judiciary has been intimidated to extents that they cannot give judgments or decisions on time. Remember, the principle is that justice delayed is justice denied. And that is the reality. Now we have seen letters written to the Chief Justice, and I hope the Chief Justice will take action soonest, where they have reminded the Chief Justice or requested the Chief Justice that the beacon of our democracy lies with the judiciary currently. And it's extremely important for us to understand, and this is something that I want to repeat. It's extremely important for us to understand that currently the judiciary is the only hope that the Zambian people have in as far as the protection or the maintenance of our democracy is concerned. It's remained a beacon. To the extent I've reminded the judiciary on several write-ups that I have written to say the judiciary or judicial officers currently, or the judges, are coming from very lucrative private practice of the law, very lucrative private practice of the law. And therefore they do so to become judges because of the love of the development of the jurisprudence of this country, because of the love of the country and the nation, and not because of money. Remember, the reality is that the civil service salary is not even something so attractive for a judge, as a matter of fact, because they're coming from very lucrative private practice, and therefore their integrity remains core. The reason why they were chosen as judges is because of the levels of integrity. And that is why I've reminded our colleagues on the bench that do not be intimidated by colleagues in political office, because their term remains a 5-year mandate. And currently, in our current setup, I can assure you that the Zambian people feel very well. And I'm happy that PS is watching. PS, the Zambian people feel very much that this government, come 2026, it is gone. President Hakainde Hichilema cannot be voted in because they know to say he is gone. The only thing the Zambian people are waiting for, they've already made up their decision that in 2026 they shall not vote At least that one we know. They shall not vote for President Hakainde. The only other thing they're waiting for is for a candidate to be given to them by the Zambian people.
What measure are you using to put up your arguments that the Zambian people
Well, as a matter of fact, as a person who's on the grassroots, who's on the ground, I have decided to take a personal survey. And the people are telling me, for example, in Matero, that we cannot vote for this government. They told us that they will give us millimil at 50 kwacha. Today we are buying millimil. In fact, today tantamilo bunga. Today, and it's extremely laughable, today we see individuals being mocked in neighborhoods such as Matero, where they tell them to say president will be coming, they start giving them 5 kwachas.
This government has a mandate.
Cannot.
This government has a mandate of 5 years to be able to deliver on their campaign promises. President Hakainde says still has time to deliver on some of the campaign promises that haven't been delivered on just yet. He highlights that yes, we promised, for example, we promised free education, we've delivered. We promised, NAPSA partial withdrawal, we've delivered. We've promised to pay council workers, we've paid them. We promised to restore meal allowances at both universities, UNZA and CBU, and extend to other universities, and we've done that. And they say, we promised also to fix the economy, and we're working on it.
Well, if a government is going to tell you that we are doing this and that in the background, just know that they do not know what they are doing. Because government operates on the basis of one, transparency and accountability. If you are going to tell me who elected you into office that I'm doing something in the background, Bwana, come out and tell me what you are doing.
Are you going to fault them also for the promises that they've achieved?
Well, whatever promises it is that you think they may have achieved is only a fraction. I remember I sat down at Movie TV once upon a time in 2021, just after the first SONA, and indicated, as a matter of fact, that there is a list that this government has provided that they shall come to achieve. Unfortunately, when you look at that list, what has been achieved does not even form a fraction of what they promised.
What has not been achieved?
Unfortunately, well, Mr. Mwansa, today, as a matter of fact, as I leave this place, the fuel I shall use will be extremely expensive. But I know our colleagues who are drawing government fuel will not feel the pinch, because that is my money. That is the Zambian people's money. They will not feel the pinch, but they want to try and embellish the activities of government. Today, if we had gone through with following the economic recovery plan of 2020, today I'm telling you, my brother, as we're looking at the exchange rate, it would not have been as bad as it is. The kwacha is performing badly against other convertible currencies. And the reason is simple. We had provided solutions to say, Bwana, let's start having gold reserves. Our gold is now going to start holding on to the debt that we have. Now, if we had done that, if we had continued, not if we had done that, if we had continued, come 2021, going forward, if we had continued to purchase the gold, by now we would have had a very stable currency, because our currency would have been backed up by the gold that we have. Now, these are solutions that were there on the table. These are solutions we keep giving our colleagues. What are they doing? Well, I will tell you, it's arrogance of power. I have seen this movie before, and this is exactly where it's going. It's going towards a place where the people of Zambia will make a decision in the ballot not to vote for this government ever again. So, this is a script that has been seen before.
Who do you think they'll vote? Who do you think they'll vote for?
I will tell you, I know for a fact that the people of Zambia have made a decision that they will not vote for this government. Whoever they shall vote for, God knows.
This government has this party has continued to win by-elections.
And these by-elections are being won how? After a lot of intimidation, political violence that is committed by the UPND, the police are watching, nothing is being done. That is why I'm saying there is selective application of the law. I only pray that the application of the law shall be equated to what it ought to be. The Lady Justice remains blind, and law should be seen to be blind.
Councillor Celistine Mukandila, thank you so much for making time to speak to the Zambian people tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much. It's been an interactive one. Thank you.
We've been breaking down and analyzing the ZCCB Pastoral Letter that highlights quite a number of issues. They've expressed concern around the high cost of living, but also they've commended government on some of the strides that they've made so far. See you again tomorrow as we, get into a show called This Day with Digindava John Abuyo. He's going to be speaking to the United Kwacha Alliance chairperson in Sakwiba, Scotta. Again, see you on Friday for another exciting edition of Diamond Live. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Thank you so much for watching.